Well, good evening and welcome back to the second hour of Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Across the board from me, Timothy Dennis. In studio with us as well as intern Ben.
What did I do wrong? Why you got to call me Timothy? That's what my mother calls
Timothy
me.
David Dennis.
Especially when I'm in trouble.
A heap of trouble, sir. Hey, speaking of a heap of trouble, come on out and join Dave, Tim, and the international correspondent Adrian Lee as we go to the Rock nightclub tomorrow night for the Minneapolis Indie Horror Fest. It's going to be great. There's featuring 3 horrifying full-length features from Minnesota's finest. So come on out. Want more information on that? Again, it's at the Rock nightclub. You can give them a call at 651-770-7822, 651-770-7822. Tim and I are looking forward to meeting you, so is Adrian. So come on out, say hi to us. And remember, let's support our lovely Nicole tomorrow. She's going to be on KARE 11 at 4:30. It's a 4:30 segment on KARE 11's Showcase Minnesota. We want to be there to support her as well as you can. Watch that on the show. If you're listening from out of state and you want to see Nicole, just check out KARE11.com. And I think if you check the Showcase Minnesota part of the page, they actually update it and put the little stories on there, so you'll be able to see that. And we want to congratulate our good friends, Tim. We've got Aaron, Nick, and Zach, who just debuted their brand new show on the Travel Channel, Ghost Adventures. Fantastic show. Did you get a chance to watch it over the weekend?
Yep,
Wasn't that great?
It was on 72 times. I think I watched it 71.
Yes, so, it's a very good show. Ben, did you see it? Did you like it? Turn on your mic, honey. Welcome to radio.
Well, if Tim would turn it up on the board, then I'd be able to be here.
It was up.
Come on, do I have to separate you kids? So you watched it too?
Yes, I watched it and absolutely loved it.
Yeah, it was a really well done show. You know,
Yeah.
it was. I just liked the way they pulled it off. I was a little worried. Not that I'm worried about the guys; they're great. I just, with the glut of paranormal, but they really kind of deliver a whole different.
They're kind of like paranormal daredevils.
Yeah, it's like Jackass meets the Ghost Hunters.
Yeah, exactly.
But
That's
I mean
a good
that in the most positive way possible. So yeah, we want to mention that. Hey guys, watch Travel Channel every Friday night on Travel Channel. You can watch the Ghost Adventures crew. Guys, congratulations. We're proud of you. Job well done. Tim, we got to spend some time out at the expo this weekend.
Healthy Life Expo over there in...
You don't have to mention where it's at anymore, man. It's closed.
But
unless people are
might want to drive by
machine.
And reminisce.
Yeah, you're true.
You might want to go, I had such
We're
a
at the
great
Healthy
time.
Life Expo this weekend, and I got a chance to walk around and meet some fantastic people and listen to some of the different things that are going on out there in the world of holistic healing and medicines, alternative treatments. And as I'm standing there, this big doe-eyed girl came walking by us, and she went down. Of course, being a red-blooded male, I watched where she went, and she sat down at a table, and I saw her setting up all kinds of sound equipment, and I'm like, well, you know what, we're doing sound information for the second part of our show tonight. We needed a guest for this part, and I thought this was kind of an interesting little lead-in, so I went down there, of course, under the guise and ruse of actually carrying what she had to put on there. She could have been selling, like, cutlery.
Wow.
It was a ruse, I admit it. But I get down there, and bam, she knocks me down with some awesome information and great stuff. So I said, you got to be on the show. She goes, okay, you got to talk to Paulette. I said, all right, bring Paulette on. So, we did. So we bring the two lovely ladies into the studio. And, of course, Alina, who I originally went over and spoke to, refuses to talk first. She's going to make Paulette step up to the mic for us first.
Well, why not?
She's shy. Now she's shy. You should have heard her. She was like, and this is why you need to get this, Dave. We can make your hair grow back. We can make you bigger, stronger, tougher, and faster than you ever were before.
You can become twice your size and be able to hit home runs with the greatest of ease.
Actually, that's not what they said. But they did have a great little dissertation to talk to us about. And our guests this evening are Paulette Hastings and Alina Janson, and they're joining us to talk about how anybody can experience a higher quality of life by balancing and harmonizing their brain through the utilization of brain state conditioning technology. Everyday stresses from trauma, especially those built over a lifetime, create dysfunctional neural pathways in our brain. Tim, you know this firsthand.
Yeah, I flunked science.
Yeah, and in college, I think you did your best to burn out most of those pathways.
I did. I succeeded pretty well, too.
Yes, you did. And brain state conditioning changes these pathways by creating and reinforcing new harmonious ones to override the old. So an imbalanced brain, what they're telling us, often manifests physical and mental dysfunctions. In turn, balancing one's brain waves commonly results in a decrease or elimination of those dysfunctions. And clients have varied greatly, they told me. Many suffer from depression, anxiety, sleep disorders, or addictions. Some are athletes looking to improve their performance, artists seeking deeper levels of creativity, or mediators wanting to experience a higher level of consciousness. That's what really struck me. Starting to get into the higher level of consciousness, working with intuition, and I thought, boom, here's the hook.
Okay.
All right, she's got me now.
All right.
I'm interested. I want to hear more about what's going on this.
You're buying what she's selling, baby.
I'm with it.
Yep.
Totally. So then, of course, today she goes, okay, talk to Paulette. Boom, I talked to Paulette. Paulette's just as good, just as well versed in this. So she starts telling me about what's going on with this. And the technology itself is pretty impressive in what they can do. So let's welcome to the show right now, Paulette Hastings. Paulette, thank you very much for joining us.
It's great to be here.
Now, how did you find out about this technology, first of all?
Well, I had a little bit of a different avenue than most people. The man who developed this, Lee Gertis, is somebody that I've known for about 10 years. And when he started developing this technology about 7 years ago, my husband and I started hearing these really neat stories about clients that he was working with. So for quite a period of time, we've been hearing about clients who are starting to feel better, coming out of depression and so forth, like you said. So a year ago, we decided that it was time for us to invest in the company. So we bought a license, and we thought we were going to be the first licensees in Minnesota. And lo and behold, Alina was in my training class. And so, in fact, we both opened up our offices last October. And so the first two in Minnesota.
So you guys are on your 1 year already of doing this.
We are.
Yep.
All right. So when you got this technology, what about it drew you to it?
Well, a couple of things. The first thing that happened is that in order for me to actually better understand it, I wanted to try it out myself. So I flew down to Scottsdale and took part in a week of sessions. And as a result of that time, I found that my energy level really improved throughout the day. I was able to kick my caffeine habit, which was...
I thought you said kick your cat for a second.
No, not my
kick
cat.
my cat. Hey, come on, Paulette, this is a family show.
No cat in the house.
All
But,
right. You kicked your caffeine habit doing this.
I did. And thirdly, I had a pretty bad fear of heights, and I found that has diminished quite a bit.
Okay, diminished.
Yes,
Explain
I still
diminish
have
me.
that. I am not one to go to the top of the roller coasters or to
So
necessarily
now you
do
go
a lot
halfway
of
up the roller coasters
no,
and make
not
them
so
stop?
Much that, not so much that. But I've actually never had a chance to test it until this last summer. And we did some hiking in Sedona, Arizona. And I found that I really was not nearly as nervous as I have been in the past. So that was really my true test to find out that I was really much better than I was a year before.
Really? So you can even attack fear. Oh, my God. Alina, you're bored already? She's over here yawning at the show, Tim. This is her second time. I look over and she's like...
Maybe you could use that thing to wake her up.
It's a good sign.
Good deal. So people that can actually change that pattern of thinking too, their fears, it's able to attach. See, that's what blows me away. Now, first of all, Alina, I'm throwing it over to you because it's time for you to throw in the disclaimer.
The shyness of speaking in public for me hasn't completely dissipated yet.
Not yet? Well, what's the disclaimer
improved.
first? Let's get this taken care of. You kept hitting me with the disclaimer today. We don't
treat, we don't cure, we don't diagnose. We simply balance and harmonize the brain. And
so if I have a problem, I don't call you up and say, can you, something in my life sucks, can you fix it?
Right.
You can't say, well, okay, your life sucks,
technically-
we'll balance you, but I can't tell you you're depressed. I can't tell you that you're
right. I mean,
bipolar.
There's patterns that can be, we notice sometimes are reflective, but we don't know for sure yet. And so technically someone could come in, not speak a word to us. We just look at their brain through the electrode, the brain assessment. And we would actually be able to balance and harmonize their brain the same way, and they would still receive very positive results. So there's no talk therapy involved whatsoever.
Okay, so see, Tim, this is the perfect relationship. You don't have to speak. You just go sit down. They hook you to electrodes.
Wow.
You have to pay a lot for that in Vegas, don't you?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
But they also
speaking
bind
of,
me.
These two lovely ladies in Minnesota only for this deal, speaking of the assessment, have offered a special deal for our listeners. If you're a Darkness Radio listener and you hear the show and you're interested in getting this done, they're going to give you a free assessment, which is a $200 value. You're just going to contact these ladies. We'll give out numbers and websites that you can check them out at to do that. And you guys are going to throw in the free assessment, right?
Yes, we will.
Well, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
All right, Alina, when you heard about this technology, what drew you to it?
I really like the fact that it's non-invasive. It's very safe. And the way that it was helping so many people without the use of pharmaceuticals, without the use of, and it was fast for people. It's something that potentially can be done in less than a week or about a week's time period, and it can be just so life-altering for so many people. So that was the biggest draw for me. It was just something on an intuitive level. It kind of spoke to me on a heart level. I was at the time back in school for art direction advertising because I like the creative artistic side. But there was a part of me that just wasn't drawn to that. There was a part of me that didn't fit. And I just randomly came across an interview with Lee Gertis one day online, YouTube or something along those lines, and was really just blown away by what he had to say and how it helped people, how it helped his son. And it just spoke to me on that level. So
now walk us through this. Now, Paulette, I'll come back to you in a second, but again, I want to give the devil her due here because she's the one that sold me on this technology at first when I came up talking to her. When I asked you, what do you do? This is what impressed me. Tell me, walk you through, how does this happen? Or when you do an assessment, what all happens? What do people expect? Wet their temples, down, strap them to a table, and start administering shock therapy, right?
Exactly.
Excellent. Perfect.
Well, I'll start it off. I'll let Paulette chime in here, too. We start off with an individual brain assessment. So we're looking at each lobe of the brain, left and right hemisphere, to see the actual balance between the hemispheres, between the different lobes. And we're also looking at the brainwave frequencies in each lobe on each side. So we're looking at delta, theta, alpha, low beta, beta, high beta, and recently we'll be looking at gamma brainwaves as well. So from the slowest to the fastest. So it's a very, very detailed picture we get of each individual, and we can very clearly see where there are imbalances in that. So
now I've got online with us our Tech Talk specialist, Bill Murphy. Bill, you're there with us, right?
Yes, I am.
The reason I wanted you to be in on this, Bill, too, is because there's a couple of names I always forget in the field, and you seem to have them readily handy. So we're going to bring you in a little bit here as we progress. But have you heard of this type of technology before yourself, Bill?
It could be maybe a different approach than what Paulette and Alina are using, but I have heard, and I actually use a method that may be similar, using an EEG, an electroencephalogram, to get a view of the brainwave activity, specifically look at states of consciousness.
Now, is that what you guys do, too? Can you see states of consciousness?
We actually are looking specifically at wave bands, so the frequency levels, and we know that some of those frequencies are found more in the subconscious than the conscious level, but we really don't focus on specifically looking at various levels of consciousness.
right.
But now you said, when I was talking to you, Alina, you do have people like read, so you can kind of get them distracted, right? And you check the brain. Weren't you talking to me
This
about that?
part of the assessment, we do an eyes closed brain map and an eyes open. And on the eyes open, we have them do light brain activities to see what the brain looks like in action. Because when your eyes are open, typically we're doing some type of focusing. But with regards to consciousness level, Paulette's absolutely correct. We don't monitor that. But one thing we do look at, particularly with the alpha brainwave frequencies, is to see more alpha on the right side of the brain with a predominance towards the back. And we're finding that that area has, when you have a high concentration in alpha like that, it can help with oftentimes happiness, well-being, but also intuition or connection to a higher source.
Oh, really? So that's where it comes in, where you feel that this might be... Now, you were also telling me about a psychic that you might be working with.
Yes, who I did see last night. Not as a psychic, but as a friend.
Okay.
And I told her your offer, and she said absolutely. Well, I should probably double check again because who knows. But she said off the record that she'd be up and game for you being there if we hooked her up while she was channeling. So.
No, yeah, check this out, Bill. What we're going to do is we're going to actually have the psychic set up to this array as they're doing it, and then she's going to begin to channel, and they're going to map the frequencies. And map, is it frequencies? Is that the right term?
Yeah.
Where they're going to map the frequencies, they're going to map what's going on and see what the changes are.
That's pretty amazing. And if they are guiding their patients, for lack of a better term, on how to have a more balanced brain, then I agree with them 100%. It does result in a much higher degree of intuitiveness or psychic abilities.
All right, we have to take our first break of the hour here, guys, so bear with us. And for those of you that are just tuning in, you're listening to Darkness Radio. This evening we're exploring alternative medicines, alternative treatments, and we're talking with our guests Paulette Hastings and Alina Janson, and we're talking about brain state conditioning technology to help you actually fix your life by rebalancing the inconsistencies and crazy frequencies that are going on in your brain currently from the past, and the bad pathways. We're going to clear them out. So stay with us. We're going to talk more about that. You're listening to Darkness Radio. Very good, Mr. Dennis. A little brain damage from Pink Floyd.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
You are good, sir. Welcome back to Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. We're talking this evening with Paulette Hastings and Alina Janson. We're talking about brain state conditioning technology, and you guys have said a lot of stuff that's extremely interesting to me, and Bill, probably to you as well. Kicking addictions. I didn't realize that this stuff could be, first of all, mapped out. How do we know we want more alpha here and beta there and theta here and omega-6 over here? And who figured out the mapping that this is where everything belongs to be in the right places?
Well, the person who developed it and who really set sort of the base for how to go about this is Lee Gertis. And one of the things that he was looking for was initially help for himself. He was having some depressive tendencies, and so he was looking for an avenue because he wasn't finding it through talk therapy or other kinds of modalities that he was looking for. And as he continued down this process, he actually had an opportunity to work with 2 Tibetan monks. It turned out they had recently arrived in Phoenix. And so he was introduced to them and asked if he could actually hook up electrodes to them and see what their brains look like. So he said they were very generous. He had them hooked up to electrodes while they were eating, while they were sleeping, and while they were meditating. And his goal was to see what their brains looked like, because he imagined that their brains are as close to contentment as you can get. Mm-hmm. They'd been meditating for 40 years, and when they go into their meditative state, they are alert, but they are also very relaxed. So what
if the odds are you get the one guy who's like Charles Manson and went in to become a monk to try to quell the voices in his head, and you're mapping that theory?
I'm pretty sure he didn't get that guy.
All right, that's good. That's good to know. So so they use Buddhist monks to try to be the template to start
as
with,
the original basis. Absolutely. Okay. Now, since then, a lot more research has been done. We've had over 7,000 clients throughout the world, and so using the information coming from that database, the information has been tweaked and so forth. But yeah, the initial start was looking at the brains of the Tibetan monks. So seeing what they had in their brains allowed Lee to see alpha is better on the right, beta waves are better on the left, and so on. And so that's where we got started.
Now you were telling me earlier, Alina, that there's like build-up. What did you say? Was it the theta or something you were talking about? I'm sorry, I get so messed up with all the names. You said that it starts to build up, and you have to kind of thin that back out and get
Well,
things.
A lot of the times, particularly, I mean, Paulette and I both say this all the time with our clients, is most people come in, they have too much delta and too much theta in the frontal and central portions of their brain while their eyes are open and they're trying to do a light brain activity during the assessment. And so delta and theta are the brain waves that are predominant during deep sleep and lighter sleep. And so you can imagine that if you have an excess of sleep frequencies while your eyes are open and you're trying to think cognitively, how that can be counterproductive, create maybe a brain fog, lack of focus, a little bit of almost just lack of clarity.
So, Bill, does this sound to you kind of like when you defrag a hard drive? I mean, it sounds like you got to hit that.
You could make.
Yeah, you got to. You're defragging. You're basically putting everything, because everything's kind of broken up and scattered, and that makes so much sense to me.
The brain is the central control unit for your entire body. So if your brain has an imbalance, then it can affect you on a mental, physical, and spiritual level. You're not just talking about, the brain. It comes full circle.
So now let's explain to the listeners. How does this, and Tim, get ready with some of the sounds that they provided us with. How did they, when you do this, you map the sounds of the brain, mm-hmm. and then you play back those sounds for your brain to hear?
Right. Well, while they're in a session, they're hooked up with a few electrodes. It's just reading the energy coming off of the brain. There's nothing going into the client. That energy immediately is sent to the computer through the computer program and immediately sent back as sound frequencies to the client while they're in a relaxed state, usually eyes closed, sometimes visualizing. And so they're hearing the sound of their own brain waves in real time. And this technology is based off of the science of quantum physics, which states that what's observable can then be changed. So we're allowing the brain to observe itself in an optimized state, and it will naturally gravitate towards and pick up on that frequency, creating neural pathways around that more optimal state of homeostasis and balance and harmony.
So if it's listening to, that was great. Don't worry, that's a fantastic statement. I followed you. If you're listening to a damaged brain, Paulette, and you're listening to your own brain, which is foggy and dealing with all this stuff, how is listening to it back? Isn't that positive reinforcement?
Actually, the brain is smart enough to see that it's maybe not the best thing for it. What we find is, in the same way that you would look into a mirror and you might straighten your collar or, adjust. You were
going to say comb your hair, weren't you?
I was going to say fix your hair, but you do have some, so it's okay.
Wow.
The brain does the same thing. It's sort of an aha moment for the brain to say, this maybe isn't the best thing for me. And so it does make those changes. And sometimes they happen very quickly. Each of the sessions that people go through are 2 hours. And some people do notice changes even after that one session, where they may find themselves sleeping better or just feeling a little bit more alert. For others, it takes a little bit longer before they feel it. But
well, Tim, we've got some sound you guys brought us from, and this is your brain we're about to listen to, Alina, is that right?
Actually, it's not.
No.
It's an anonymous. It's an anonymous brain.
It's my brain today at the expo, but this is anonymous.
It had a great beat to it, Tim.
It's better when it's a stranger anyways.
That's right. You're so sick. Let's hear it now. So this is the actual brain sound coming back.
Right.
All right, Tim. So are we like reprogramming people's brains right now? Are they hearing this and
Actually,
they're going to start hemorrhaging or flipping out on the floor?
No, because it's not our brain, so our brain doesn't recognize it. It's our bodies have that innate wisdom to be able to recognize when it's
our own
itself.
patterns.
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't this the beginning to Peter and the Wolf?
I thought it was like the Close Encounters theme at
We've
first.
got some happier ones. Play one of the happy ones.
Do we have any more in there? Another happy one?
We got one more here. Let's see here.
Sounds like close contact.
There we go.
What was that, Bill?
It sounds like close contact of the third kind.
Yeah, Close Encounters, yeah. So this is happier brain frequency?
I call this one happy thoughts. The guided visualization for this one, we typically have our clients think of things that bring them love, joy, excitement, gratitude, and really feeling those sensations, their sight, sound, touch, smell, and making it as real as possible. And this one actually is working to increase the alpha brainwave frequencies.
Now, Paulette was kind enough, Tim, to hook me up today so we could get a little bit of Dave's brain pattern sound.
That's
so
right.
we got that. You have that sound clip handy before we go to break?
I have it right here.
All right, let's
Here
go with
is.
it.
This
All right.
this is what happens in Dave's brain.
I'm scared.
Phenomena. Phenomena.
Explains a lot, doesn't it, Tim?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Phenomena. You guys are listening to Darkness on the Edge of Town Paranormal Radio. We'll be back with more and with our guests, Paulette Hastings and Alina Janson, right here on your home for Paranormal Talk Radio. Yeah, baby. People in the chat room are hating us right now, Tim, because they're going to go to bed, and this is the song they're going to wake up to in the morning.
I say we leave it up for a bit.
I say you're right. I'm Dave Schrader. I'm your host here on the Darkness on the Edge of Town. Although this music just does not match Darkness Radio, does it?
It kind of does, yeah.
All right, yeah, it is a little bit hellish. Paulette Hastings and Alina Janson are in the office, or in the studio with us this evening, and we're talking about brain state conditioning technology. And ladies, for people, okay, pot it down, Tim. I can't concentrate on these lovely ladies when that's playing. Paulette, how can people contact you to get an assessment, which you're giving away free if they say that they're a listener of Darkness Radio? So even if you're not, just lie and tell them you're a listener of Darkness Radio.
Okay, that sounds great. For those of you who are in Minnesota, I'm located in Bloomington and have a website, www.neurostrength.com, or you can call at 952-888-0011.
Okay, and Alina, how can people contact you?
Yeah, in the Minnesota area, I am Minneapolis in the Uptown location, and my website is www.mindsymmetry, so it's MINDSYMMETRY, and that's the phone number would be 952-201-9706.
Okay, great. And people can get information there. Now, is there information on your website as well? Some videos were you saying, or is that on the main site at Brain State?
We both have videos that are good resources for more additional information and also some testimonials of clients who have actually experienced this. If you don't live in Minnesota and want to find out if there's an office near you, there are about 100 throughout the North America and also throughout Europe and South Africa and Thailand. And you can go and find those locations at www.brainstatetech.com.
Right, and just understand though, folks, Alina and Paulette are in our studio here in Minnesota. They're offering a free assessment if you're here in Minnesota and you come in, or I guess if they want to drive in from Wisconsin to Iowa, any of the locals, but they have to come to your place to get the free assessment.
Right.
That's correct.
You can't get it just by going to Brain State Tech and going to one of your local companies.
Right.
Okay, so let's just make that clear. Bill, listening to this kind of technology and hearing the brain bounce back, is that what you've done? Is it that kind of work in the past?
Well, similar, but what they have is really vastly superior. They're a form of biofeedback in a form of tones, and I presume I don't want to state for sure until I hear it from your guest, but I presume that you try to alter the tones in an effort to balance your brainwaves. If that's how it works, I think that's great, because the other approaches often had a practitioner or an operator there that'd be looking at the visual readout and was trying to guide you that way. This seems like something that is just much more effective. I'd love to hear more about this. This is great.
Yeah.
Do you change the tones at all that play back, or is it strictly just playing back your own? It's just holding the mirror up to your brain and going, "Look at you. What have you done?"
That's right. So it's much
Bad
more
pathway.
holistic. So it's really you are changing yourself from the inside. We have the technology to help you do it, but truly the client is changing their own brain.
Right.
How many clients, Paulette, have you dealt with in the year that you've been open?
About 40.
About 40.
Yeah.
And are you seeing drastic results? And you got to be honest here with us. I mean, are you seeing drastic results with people?
I will be honest. I've had some people who have very subtle kinds of changes, and others who have said to me, this has been life-changing. So I would say, yes, I have definitely had people who have had pretty extreme results from it.
What's the percentage of people that really benefit, in your opinion, from this? You know, not even just from you, but from what you know company-wide.
What I know of company-wide, it's about 90 to 95% success rate. And for
But
any modality...
how many cases do you have to, I mean, or not cases, how many, what's the word I'm looking for?
Sessions.
Sessions, yeah. How many sessions do you need to go through?
We do a minimum of 10 sessions here, because through these sessions, you're creating new neural pathways, and we want those new pathways to become a dominant pathway, so it becomes a permanent change for that individual, and that way it really is worth their time and their money to have it as a permanent change.
Then do you recommend like a tune-up once a month to come in and just kind of keep it tweaked and leave you in that position after you've done the first 10?
You know, it's very much up to the individual. A lot of people, if you're living a very stressful lifestyle and you don't change that, stress and trauma are what we find to be the number 2 causes of brain imbalances. And so if you continue to live an extremely stressful or traumatic life, then that might be a good option. I would say for me, about 25% of my clients come back and do intermittent sessions after the initial 10 or 20 sessions. Mm-hmm. But typically 5 to 30 sessions is what is needed for a permanent change within this. So.
Now, it changes more than what. So if I'm dealing with depression, I'm dealing with stress, I'm dealing with inability to sleep well at night. You see, I have a problem with meditation myself, and I've talked to Bill about this. I can't quiet the voices down, which makes me sound completely psychotic. Why are you looking at me like that? But I can't quiet. You know, my mind is always going 1,000 miles an hour, and I can't shut it off so that I can just get into a plane of focus. Because Bill, he goes out and meditates, and he sees cool stuff, you know, aliens, and experiences things like this. And is it okay I mention that, Bill, or is it too late now?
Take it back, Dave.
All right, he doesn't experience aliens, but he sees, you know, he's able to get to these levels I cannot hit. Will this help me to quiet my mind?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's unique, but it's definitely something that can be a catalyst towards reaching a state of meditation that's deeper for a person. A lot of people that go through that, they do go through the sessions, do notice that their mind quiets down. They have less of that chatter, less of those racing thoughts. And it allows them to, when they do want to go into a state of meditation, to kind of just get there quickly or more quickly and stay there more steadily.
Now, dealing with the brain like this and the things that go on, is there a concern if somebody has, are there people that should not take this? If I have epilepsy, should I take this? Should I try this?
We have a few categories, and epilepsy is one of those where we are extremely cautious. Seizures are a difficult thing to deal with. So we proceed very cautiously and sometimes recommend that client not actually go through sessions. We do have some cases, like with autism, when it's a very severe case of autism, it's very difficult for change. And it may happen, but it might be 100 or 120 sessions before you start to see some positive changes. So
yeah, but can you put a number on that? If you're dealing with a child with autism and medicine isn't reaching your child, so you have 120. No, I don't know. I'll admit I don't know much about autism. You know, I know that just they're kind of in their own little world. Have you ever dealt with autistic children?
I haven't.
No, I've worked with kids who have ADD, but I've not worked with any autistic kids.
Has it worked pretty well for the ADD children?
It has, actually.
Can I drop mine off with you and we'll test them for a couple weeks?
That would be lovely.
All right, great. Now, Bill, what do you think? By mapping this out, do you see that, and this is what I was excited about talking to these ladies, you know, could this be used, do you think, Bill, for fixing things like dyslexia? And I'll ask Bill so you guys aren't put on the spot to diagnose or to treat. But I'm asking Bill as an expert in technology and knowing this stuff. Bill, do you think that this could also be something that could be used for doing things like working with people that have a form of dyslexia? I even wonder about night terrors, if this would help with that.
Well, I mean, you have to be careful when you make assumptions on changing somebody's behavior or the way.
Right, because then you make an ass out of you and umptions. Isn't that how it goes? Something like that?
Something like that.
Okay.
So I don't know about dyslexia. I mean, because that's a disorder that is sort of hardwired in, and normally you do see your world upside down, but your mind writes it right side up, just because of the way the light comes in through the lens of your eyes. But seeing things backwards, like in rearranging letters, like in dyslexia, that's another disorder that I don't know if behavior modification could necessarily address that. You just have to learn to cope with it. But certainly, a lot of the other gifts of awareness would come through if you have a balanced brain. I think their approach is particularly good. It's an improvement over what I was using. And like you, Dave, I am more, I have a busy mind. It's hard to quiet it. But using biofeedback, and I forced myself to try to at least give a shot at meditating, and I was surprised I was able to do it. And when I was able to sort of quiet my mind, that was when some of this other unexplained awarenesses started to reveal themselves. It was almost like a side effect of it. I never expected it. It wasn't stated that that's what would happen, but it is what happens. So I would love to be a client of your guest at some point.
Well, we'll bring you out here and have you do some segments with them, Bill.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Do you do, ladies, when you're working with this, we wanted to talk about the intuitive level and psychic abilities, and I know that, Alina, you were mentioning that you have a psychic friend who's going to be hooked up to this and is willing to try to channel during this so we can kind of watch the brain patterns, and if you can get that approval, I'd love to be there for that, to watch, maybe even videotape the screen so I could just see and put it up for our listeners to see, what it looks like. We won't show her face unless she's comfortable with it, but I just love to see what the brain, this is your brain during psychic awareness,
Right.
And see if there's any kind of dramatic, because I would think, Bill, if you're channeling, you're in effect taking on somebody else. So if that person comes into you and is taking over for that connection, their brain pattern and electrofeedback should be a different frequency than yours, so it should be mappable and considerably different. Wouldn't you agree?
I would definitely agree. We wanted to try this with Michael and Marty. Sid with PPRS has been trying to arrange that. We just haven't been able to get our schedules synced up. I have a different EEG that I was going to be using, and we wanted to sort of tape those segments to see what happens to Michael when he is receiving his information through non-physical means. We haven't had a chance to do it, but it sounds like from what you said earlier that you're going to do this with your guest. You're going to bring in some psychics and.
Well, she has a psychic she's already working with, who's a friend of hers.
Oh, I got it.
Right,
I got it.
and
I don't even know if psychic would be the right terminology. She's more of she does healing work and, has communication with her angels and.
Is that
is
Alina
able to
speaking?
channel.
Yes, that's Alina.
Alina, does your friend who appears to be intuitive have a different brain map than, say, the average person coming in?
Well, she said earlier everybody's brain mapping is kind of different, right? Because
yeah,
you're going to have strengths in some
I would say
places.
everyone's very unique and individualized, and I don't think there's, at this point, I have even close to enough knowledge to compare her brain to somebody that does not claim to have deeper intuitive abilities. But
wouldn't it be interesting if we check her out doing this during a channeling session or communication with the spirit world? Wouldn't it be interesting, not for you ladies, of course, because you wouldn't want this guy, this kind of person in your chair doing this, but it would be interesting, Bill, just from a scientific point of view, when you see the homeless people, the people that are out talking in the streets to themselves and seem to be in their own little zone, that people so much discount and throw away and discard them, but so many of them seem to have some kind of something going on. It'd be interesting to see their brainwave pattern on a normal basis opposed to this woman who's in the middle of channeling somebody. And I wonder, has there been any kind of testing like that you're aware of, Bill?
Well, I have
people
to
that hear voices, right?
I would assume there would have been, because people have tried to to find the cause of behavioral disorders for a long, long, long time. And yeah, I would not think it's far-fetched to think that somebody who's a homeless person and unable to integrate in society has a completely different way of thinking than the average person does.
We're going to take our third and final break for this hour. Again, if you're interested in more information on this, you can visit the websites of our guest this evening. You can go to mindsymmetry.com. That's mind, SYMMETRY.com. And you can call Alina at 952-201-9706. Again, that's 952-201-9706. Or you can visit Paulette over at neurostrength.com. Again, that's neurostrength.com, NEURO strength.com at 952-888-0010, 952-888-0010.
I'm going to just correct you. It's 11 at the end.
What did I say? Okay, I'm sorry. No, you will not correct me. We will send them to the wrong place. 952-888-0011 is your phone number. Okay, sorry about that. Neurostrength with Paulette. So, and again, they'll give you a free assessment if you tell them you're with Darkness Radio and you heard us here. Check out our website. I'm going to be at the Mentone Inn for my birthday in Alabama. We're going to be ghost hunting out on the Mentone Inn November 22nd. There are tickets still available, only $25 for the day to come out, hang out. I'll do a couple of talks on ghost hunting and on angels, ghosts, and other visitations, and we'll do some ghost hunting that night. Check out our website at darknessevents.com for phone numbers so that you can get involved with that as well. We look forward to seeing you there. We're going to be back with more right after this. Insane in the membrane, Tim. Insane in the brain! Welcome back to Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. The ladies are like, what the hell did we get ourselves into here? Our guests this evening are Paulette Hastings and Alina Janson, and we're talking about brain state conditioning. We also have our special tech consultant, Bill Murphy, on the line with us, and interesting stuff, Bill, we've been talking about. And ladies, you said that you had some information for me for people that are listening that are like Bill and I that have trouble relaxing and shutting down. You had some quick, simple tips.
Just
Paulette.
some quick and easy ideas for how you can still your mind and relax your body. Okay. So one idea is if you take your left hand and just rub the tip of your thumb onto your fingertips and really try to feel that sensation. Your left hand is driven by your right brain, and your right brain is involved in what's in the present moment. And so if you can get to the present moment and just feel that sensation, that can often just help you to relax. Another thing that's similar to that is if you rub the tip of your tongue right behind your front teeth, so on the roof of your mouth, it tickles a little bit, and that actually helps reduce the amount of beta waves that you're producing. And your beta waves is part of what causes all that mind chatter in your head.
Really?
So it's just
it's a weird twist. I don't know if this has any correlation to it, but when I get emotional, I'm with the kids or something, and we're talking, or you get up and you have to give a speech and you're eulogizing somebody. Or if I get to the point where I start getting choked up, I'll start doing that with my tongue. I'll start licking the tongue. It's the only thing that keeps me from bawling.
Funny.
Weird.
Yeah. It's actually stimulating alpha brainwave frequencies while you're doing that, and it's really a very desirable brainwave for us to have.
Good. So that's a good place, right?
That's a good place. It's a happy frequency.
Lick the inside of your own mouth to be in a happy place. Tim, see, you learn something new on Darkness Radio every week.
Yeah, I do.
So what else are some of the ways? So you're going to rub the thumb with the
on your left hand. On your left hand.
This is my left hand.
Yep. And
yes, that's my left hand.
And so just feel the sensation of your fingertips. And the other thing that you can do is if you just place your tongue right behind your teeth, as if you're saying a word that starts with an N like Nancy, and just hold it there. You cannot clench your jaw when you're doing that. So sometimes I'll even do that when I'm driving and I'm feeling tense and I can tell I'm clenching my jaw, and that will just force me to relax. Or sometimes I'll just relax my jaw so I look kind of goofy driving with my mouth hanging open, but it does force me to relax.
I'd rather your mouth is hanging open than your fingers up your nose.
This is true. I prefer
Unless,
that
of course,
as well.
you're stimulating the temporal lobe doing that. I'm not quite sure.
Most people drive.
Yes, exactly. Unfortunately, the hour's slipping away from us here quickly, but Paulette, you were mentioning during the break, some schizophrenics have the switch on and off in the brain that you've seen through some of the stuff you've done, but also the monks, they were able to actually turn off hemispheres of their mind as he's watching them do this and mapping it out.
Right. A fascinating experience for Lee in that one of the meditators especially, he would just lift up his finger when he was ready to move into another state of meditation. And he could actually turn off one side of his brain completely. So when Lee was looking at the screen, he would see both the left and the right side activity, and suddenly the right side would just shut off. Mm-hmm. And then the monk could turn it back on and turn off the left side. And when Lee asked him, boy, how do you do that? And he said, well, it's my brain, and so I should be able to control it. But remember, this is somebody who's meditated for at least 40 years and has mastered techniques.
I recall back in training when Lee was telling us that story that he mentioned at one point that these monks were some of the most psychic individuals he's ever come across. They're just so in touch and so have that strong ability to connect. So,
doing this, do you guys hook yourselves up on a regular basis as well and
We do.
experiment?
We
We
are products of the technology. Absolutely.
not as regular as we should, but yes.
Do you do now when you're doing this and you bring in clients now? Do they come to you for? Do they do eating disorders?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do
Some
they
have
come in
to.
for shyness, for self-esteem issues?
Yeah, self-confidence and even social interactions, just to
Right.
improve those interactions. We've actually seen us had some interesting cases, not necessarily in our offices, where couples have come in and they're rather argumentative when they first come in, but at the end of their 10 sessions, they're holding hands and they're feeling much happier about their relationship. So that's a neat thing to see.
Really? So it just kind of squares you out all the way, right?
It does.
How about diabetics? Is that something that you've had? Can that be controlled by brainwave pattern? Diabetes?
I only know of one person who actually has diabetes, and it was really kind of the early stages when Lee was trying to determine what would work and what wouldn't. It didn't actually eliminate this particular client's diabetes, but she was able to regulate her sugar and insulin levels better. So she actually cut the number of shots that she needed in half. So it didn't eliminate it, but it was certainly better regulated.
Well, I would guess too that if you're taking the depression levels down, you're taking the craving levels down,
Right, the sugar
you're
cravings.
taking the bad stuff and moving it down, and most diabetics have weight problem issues, it seems, and then that helps to lower that, brings up self-esteem, so that actually then in a sense it would help with something like diabetic, because then you would actually be in a more healthy spot and
Right.
and could
Yeah.
get over this.
It's
Yeah.
really all connected. I mean, like I said earlier, these imbalances come from the stress and the trauma. And a lot of these stressors and a lot of these traumatic events happen in those earliest stages in life. They can even happen pre-birth, during conception, or after. And it's really that brain pattern is setting up this person for how they are going to act throughout the rest of their life, So if some people come in, they'll be high on the left side temporal, and that can be reflective of someone who's had an abandonment or trust issue, either as an infant or as a child. Whereas if they come in, they're high on their right side temporal, that's often indicative of some sort of infringement trauma, a perceived attack, perceived threat, perceived
Almost like
as,
paranoia.
Well,
A low level of paranoia, right? That you're feeling attacked and you're feeling
yeah,
vulnerable
perceived
like that?
is the important
Right,
word there. It
perceived,
doesn't
right.
mean they are, but they perceive it as such, and it can be as
You'd be
early
paranoid
as a
too if the
little
world
child.
was out to get you, Alina.
Oh,
You don't understand.
Already paranoid.
Exactly. So you start tweaking the stuff down. Have you seen people that come in that were very skeptical? Because I know our listeners are skeptics.
Yes.
They listen. They're like, "Geez, I'm fooling his money or soon parted." Right? They come in. They're skeptical of this, and does it just kind of kick their ass anyway and fix them? And do they kind of walk away going, "Wow, I didn't expect this." Is it a mark?
A lot of people come in very skeptical. But the thing with this technology is, even if the person comes in and they don't believe in it, or if they're even unwilling, say a parent is bringing a child, they will still receive the benefits. They've done a study in a correctional facility out in Nevada with inmates who were more or less not there by choice and had incredible changes in the behavior of these men. Their personalities stay the same, but they were able to act much more rationally and behave on a much more normal basis.
Well, ladies, I appreciate you coming in and spending time with us. This is amazing information to me, and I'm glad that people like you are out there developing and teaching people about this, because I don't think, what you guys are doing is, and I know you can't treat and do all that, but what you're doing is you're helping not the symptoms. You're not trying to coat them like a drug does. You're actually trying to get to the root of the problem and fix it at the base level. Right. So I applaud you for that, and I think that's great that you guys are able to bring up something, because I think the problem is we live in a drug-addicted world with people walking around that are putting a Band-Aid over a gashed wound that they can't stop hemorrhaging. And the whole idea is, let's stop the hemorrhage, not just put a Band-Aid over it.
Right.
So again, you ladies are offering up a $200 free assessment for Darkness Radio listeners. If you're interested and you'd like, you can contact Paulette at neurostrength.com. That's NEURO strength.com. Her phone number, and I'll get it right this time, is 952-888-0011. 952-888-0011, or you can talk to Alina, and you can reach her at mindsymmetry.com. That's mind, SYMMETRY.com, mindsymmetry.com at 952-201-9706. Again, that phone number, 952-201-9706. Tell them that you're a Darkness Radio listener to get a $200 free assessment and start over with that. Ladies, thank you very much for coming in and spending some time coming out of your comfort zones and being here with me on the radio tonight. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Bill, thanks a lot for being here with us. Are you going to hang in for the next hour with our next guest?
Yes, I am, Dave.
All right, we're going to be back with Wayne Perry, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about some other fascinating things for you. Stay tuned. You're listening to the best in Paranormal Talk Radio on your home for Paranormal Talk Radio every Saturday and Sunday night